Welcome people, how are you? And it's the Crypto Sniper, yes, coming at you with an update. Yeah, we're going to look at Bitcoin, which is always the one we put you got to look at in terms of the big things. And we're also going to look at one we've updated on and made big calls for that many people think is failing. We've got a lot of smaller cap and medium caps that we've actually had a little bit of fun with and done rather well on. That's in the community. You can find out more about that. I tend not on the YouTube to get into anything that's outside the top 25 very regularly, unless it's special interest item. So click on the link below. Great gains being made as well there during a bull market. But understanding which direction the market's going to go, how it's looking, it's pretty much our game. And we look at Bitcoin for that god market of crypto. So let's have a look at the Bitcoin chart. So there were a number of people that were calling head and shoulders. The same people that have been pretty bearish at around 30 grand and 40 grand and plenty more on a head and shoulder that resembled something like that. We were not buyers on that. We think you're very early doors. You've only just made a new high by a small amount. It's natural to have progress decay, an element of churn, chop, and resetting and winding up just after making a new high. It's typical. People buy the new high and then they get put straight into a funk, but it is not an absolute dead rubber. It's not a pullback to 50 grand, 48 grand, and some of the things I'm hearing just yet. That I'm not saying that can't ever happen. I'm just saying right now, we never felt that this was going to be. We watched it, we spoke of it, and then we saw the structure and we felt it was going to walk out, and that's exactly what we did. In fact, as per our usual biases, where we expect continuation, we actually said it won't rip to a new high, but we think it will probably be in RH2 category. So it'll make a secondary high. In other words, that was the all-time high right there, bomb, just shy of 74K. You pull back just under 61K. So you're kind of in the 74, 61K range. That's a reasonable 13 grand pullback, by the way, for something that's just made a new high. And as a result, we felt after the walkout was coming that you're probably going to grind higher, but you haven't got breakout momentum. So this is going to lead you into another congestion period. And when asked by the community, how far do we think it's going in terms of the upside, I said the legacy previous highs of 69K. So if we turn the lights on, no, they're already on. Let's go to another chart where I've got that already drawn. Bitcoin. How are you doing? Let's go to the top. Sorry about that. We've got all our levels drawn on a different particular draw market. So there we go. Is that the one? Is that the one? That's the one. Okay, so that was your legacy high. Still not exactly 68, 69 high. Let's wipe our face there a little bit. Take that structure off for now. So this was the pullback. You've got a lot of levels that were interesting for us, and we felt that you had run through the 69 and then run into a little bit of stress there. And you are kind of a little bit of shooting star. It's not a good time to enter. And I actually think there could be a bit of chop, churn, and even in time, a bit of a pullback. So we were in a channel heading down. It was pretty controlled channel, even though there were some very uncomfortable skids. That was, for example, a quite volatile period with a lot of skids. Then there was a lot of value buying, down. This was quite a nasty skid as well, into the low, and you kissed that. And this blue level that we drew in there of 61K would have been potentially a support level that, if fell, might have been given some credence to the head and shoulder scenario. But no, we didn't feel that as our predominant case, and you've got back above legacy high 68,958 and the 72K. So there you are, you're sitting here, and I think moderate, maybe a little bit higher, maybe a little bit down, bit of churn. I don't think it's good entry points for longs, but you may get in time small tactical shorts into a low, into around key levels around again 65 and the 64,829. So these two blue lines were the legacy highs. The first high, that was the head and shoulder one, and the final high of 69. So that's quite an important range. Again, we felt you'd get through that mid range back to the high side, and then you're probably going to sit a little bit supported and then dip into the in-betweener land here for Bitcoin. So right now, it's not particularly interesting as a Bitcoin trader. That said, in due course, we expect it to go onwards and upwards. We remind you always of the bigger time frames and say, remember that this is early doors. Let's just take some of that annotations out. So this is very similar to being roundabout here. This is why the people calling for substantial pullbacks are a little early. There have been a couple of people I'm thinking of that have been kind of bearish for a while. You are here in the bull run, and you're probably maybe sitting on top of that. There's our little snowman with his carrot nose. But you're kind of there in the bull market. You're actually going to have the biggest moving days still ahead of you. Look at those candles. Wow. In my opinion, that's going to be a ripper, a stripper all the way to Vegas. Yeah, that's right. And that would be, for me, 150K. And I still think there's possibilities for beyond that. But 145, 150K is something we have targets for. That's based off that. Tiny bit small on the shoulder line, I would say. Big ass head. That's the whole bear market. It's quite a big reversal structure. Little bit non-standard because it's not a secular bear market. It's more a pullback bear market. Bear in mind, since 2009, Bitcoin's been nothing but an upside here. So ideally, inverted head and shoulders would be at real big secular lows. But it is kind of the low for recent. The last time you were that low was, and that feels like a long time ago, but wasn't, 2020 in October. So we allowed that one, and it's, yeah, you know, it's a reasonable effort at targeting for the upside, and we stand on that. So this is just a little bit of shooting star, hammer, and then green candle, a little bit of churn around on the bigger time frames. As I say, it's nothing to get too frantic about. In fact, there's a lot of chatter at the moment. There's a solar eclipse. And then there are interesting people somewhere in the Middle East that have got red heifers ready for a slaughter. Imagine that ritualized God. You cleanse your nation's sins by slaughtering harmless animals that are virgins and are all of these things. Sounds a bit ritualistic to me personally. There's lots of people saying, oh my God, oh my God. And then of course you've had the 322 events. That was of course Russia being attacked by ISIS. The West knew it was ISIS real quick. So it's been kind of interesting. And that's designed to create a bit of fear. And that's a perfect environment for markets to pump higher. You know, I've lived through the Mayan calendar. I've lived through the 1999 when aeroplanes were supposed to be falling out of the sky. And actually, most of these things, in terms of things that everybody kind of expects and gets a bit jittery about, don't end up transpiring. Indeed. In fact, the opposite of exactly what they're looking to generate with you in a bit of fear ends up turning a very good time to be net long. So, you know, when you get hit, you tend to get hit suddenly and you don't expect it. Most don't expect it. And we are expecting a demand destroying event, but it's not yet. It's not yet. I can see it. We haven't yet. The yield curves have not returned back to positive. They've still got a bit to go. I'm watching that like a hawk. There's lots of things. So there's more groovy upside to be had. And I consider this to apply to equities, by the way. I'm also watching gold. We've got a short timer on gold versus other currencies apart from the dollar, where we have upside structure. So there's a lot to the upside going on markets. And there's nothing to me that spells immediate crash. I've did have a check at the US indices. Yes, hyper overvalued. Yes, everything. Yes, plenty of fluff to give up at some point, but it doesn't feel like that point is now. So in actual fact, it's a reasonably risk on period right now. We've got to watch the dollar. Everyone was assuming a little bit dollar weakness. The Dixie, what Dixie do? We take you to the bigger time frames. We remind you of what we've said before, that the failure for this particular structure, because what the dollar does is important. The failure for this particular structure to press on further down over here, once it had run the technical 100, and then that prominent reversal that made a new high, albeit large amount of it taken back. This is actually pointing generally, given the previous exhaustive highs there and that break, to what we referred to as the watermelon smile. The rounded bottoms, the failure to make new lows. So you're having low, 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 flat, marginally lower low, failure to make a new low, failure to make a new low. This little reversal pattern actually performed to the upside. Up, little bit of a broadening structure, bang, makes target, little bit of overperformance, bang, comes down, supports there, now rallying back, resting at the legacy target. So the notion that the dollar is going to be super supportive during this period, I think a little bit overdone. Everyone was talking about weak dollar, weak dollar, weak dollar. Not for us. There's your watermelon smile, or let me take that middle line out. Your toothy grin, as I sometimes do it, is certainly there. So, you know, I'm not saying it's a bull dollar. There's not a major setup. I just think the notion that it's going to trade significantly lower is overstated, and that in actual fact, you're going to get a benign, fairly mildly up, more than down drift in this kind of a range. Why? Because interest rates, invariably the Fed leads. Many people expecting cuts. I think it was June they said. Others have cut preemptively. We had the Swiss National Bank actually doing a cut. So those currencies that are typically very strong, the Swiss franc relative to the rest of the rabble, also came down a little bit. So there's some early movers, and then I think later and less is the analogy than most people expect in terms of cuts. Why? Because of that bond market. Nobody wants to be a buyer. We've already had a number of bond crises. So all that traditional market talk brings us back to the fact that Bitcoin isn't going to just rip to a new high from here, I don't feel. So going back to Bitcoin, I think it first has a little bit of a rest on those smaller time frames. But I remind you, as we say goodbye to the smile, that generally you have just made new highs, and you are somewhere the equivalent of round about there relative to that. Round about there relative to that, as you can see it. Or in the much longer bull market, round about there. And you'll note again a red candle over there, a little bit of pullback. In the big picture of things, after that rest, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5 in a row, 6, 7, 8. 8 with only one red. Monthly candles. So don't get shaken out round about now. In terms of investment, don't be shaken out round about now. At its early doors. This was a bit of a truncated bull in my terms because of that dollar index suddenly getting stronger again. And a number of other things, and you still got 1, 2, 3, 4 monthly ups. And this is in a log scale, by the way. This was just over the 20k, and by the time you got here, it was 64. So it's quite a heck of a move in terms of multiples. You literally did more than triple from that point. So don't get out at 70 when 210 is on the offer. That's if it's a truncated bull, similar to the previous one. But the dollar not doing too much until we see a little bit up, a little bit down, a little bit sideways. It's actually relatively benign, not too zippy, but more upward drift. Remember, it's being compared to the euro, the pound, the Swiss franc that cut rates, normally strong but cut rates, and the Japanese yen. It's even in the mix. And that is a hiding to nothing. So there you go. That's your currencies thrown in on Bitcoin. So what are we actually talking about now? Well, I'll talk about one I've already talked before, because we're not going to give all our trades away here. You can click the first link below if you want to find out what else we're finding interesting. But I'm going to update you on XRP. And we are going to be talking about the Red Heifer trade. Yes, the Red Heifer. My divine cult will slaughter this there cow, and I will celebrate being king over all you serfs, because that clearly is godliness. Yes, indeed. So go and research that, by the way. It's a bunch of proper crank stuff. But let's have a look at XRP. So here we go. H1. H1 is right here. Left shoulder, head, right shoulder. And there's a little bit of what we refer to as complexity in all of this. So, when you broke this, at this level is interesting, 65 cents for the XRP. So I'm starting on a low time frame and I'm heading the other way back up. So we'll talk to you why this really matters. This pattern that you're seeing, this right here. Yes, this, where's it? Left, right? I don't know. We'll see in the edit later, but and you'll be watching this. And I'm saying to you that slip down below the 65 and the subsequent price action could in fact be, there you go, left shoulder, head, and a flatter longer right shoulder. Currently trading down. We don't mind too much. Currently trading down, as I mentioned, had a little bit of a dip complexity, almost made the neck. So it's almost like a double shoulder. Didn't quite make the same neckline. We chose the 65 cents for the neckline because it was clearly run by the two armpits here, armpit 1 and 2. And that is why we chose it. But there was a failed attempt there. And as a result, you're getting like a almost double shouldering, but not quite to the neckline. So there's a double shoulder. Imagine me with two shoulders on each side. Geez, I would be hench. Anyway, getting stupid. So this has a pullback right now. So it's already finished the main shoulder when it got to there, the blue square. So let's just work that one out there. So it's already reached the level, been kind of rejected, got a little bit skitty, and then a little bit of a grind there. Try it again. Grinds get spanked because they're weak upside moves, and that's exactly what's happening. So you're getting the XRP. It's getting a wee spanking at the moment, and everybody, a little bit maybe risk-offy at the moment, calming down. We're in everything. We've got a swathe of great trades right now, actually, including in the commodities. But anyway, let's stay with XRP. So what about all of this? Providing that, so how do we fail? Let's start with how do we fail? Providing that doesn't subsequently run that. Now, in terms of values, the low was, give it to him, look up top with me, 59.9. So basically you need to leave the 60s. If you leave the 60s, this pattern is null and void. And it can be, patterns fail often. This is not a guarantee, particularly lower time frames. What time frame are we? H1. So I'm going to be taking you through patterns from H1 right the way up to day 1, right the way up to multi-week. That's right. We're talking about domino stacking. Can the small ones gain some momentum, knock over some medium-sized ones that gain some momentum, and knock over bigger ones that gain some momentum, and go and gain further momentum and knock over a massive one? And then we get a huge target. Let's see. But the failure point here, it's quite clear. We are wrong and we failed. And you can come and say it if it means something special to you. If that 59 cents 0.9 is run. And it is quite grindy, and it's not yet looking very backbone. In short, XRP during this period has been nothing but a spineless jellyfish. Let's be clear. Compared to XRP on DOM, spineless jellyfish. Spineless little jellyfish. No testicular vandolas. Have a look down. They've been neutered. They are transgender, etc., etc. But when the day comes, it's kind of like silver. It could come big. They're busy whining on Twitter about 2 billion. So the SEC, by the way, is an extraction racket. It is basically a mafia. It can't prove anything, but accuses you, has the power to limit you and say you owe, and says the price is 2 billion. The fact that judges have said they look garbage, they've made bad arguments, they haven't done their work, a bunch of state, they just have that power to mess. I mean, imagine how people like us get crushed. It's essentially, and I remember watching the story on a guy who was growing grass and selling marijuana and got put in the jail. Trying to remember the book about it, but they don't do research or justice. They're just lazy, sloppy, and an aggressive bully. So they just literally lock you up and say, until you plead and you accept the following sentence and fine and stripping of all your assets, you can just basically sit there. And that's kind of where XRP is. They've been sitting in limbo land with an SEC that has the power and is now saying, for a massive extraction amount that runs into billions, you know, that used to be big money, billions, 2 billion, that's 2,000 millions, not for a government that can print up money, but for a corporation. That hurts. That flipping hurts. Whether they deserve, XRP deserves anybody's sympathy or not, I don't know. They went straight to court the bankers. But I'm here recognizing that just about all crypto projects that will succeed are status and will cooperate with the cartel. So why be specifically angry with one group? Anyway, that all said, this is selling off fairly abruptly. But if it gets back down here and bounces, base builds, our alerts are pinging on it right now as it's happening, and then comes back up, if it does that, and then triggers the 65 and trades above the 65. Don't forget, when you were bearish on XRP and it was selling off, had you been short, you would have had to sit through a rally that big. In the same way, now that you might want to be long, you might have to sit through a pullback this big, and it could come. I wouldn't want to see that shoulder also go lower Then the previous shoulder's low, that was one of the lows, that was the absolute low. In this case, it didn't do that. So it does have a little puke, man peas off the roof, but then it kind of works it out and grinds up. This was not spectacular. Don't forget, all the time this was happening, Bitcoin was ripping. Other tokens were ripping. So as I said, spineless jellyfish. I get that. People can come and go, you're all going to lose your money on XRP. Spineless jellyfish, underperformed, no testicola vandolas, until maybe suddenly it hasn't. But why is this still of interest? The key thing is I'm not holding an investment. I'm holding things that are going up in investment. It would have absolutely destroyed me to do that. And in fact, I've rotated my investment pot a reasonable amount. Again, click links to find out more. And I'm happy with the investment performance I'm getting. This is a leverage trade. Somebody asked a question. This is a leverage trade when it makes it, where you use your other investment as a token as collateral. And, you know, I have the feeling with XRP, there's also more scope for many cry wolf moments before you get it. So you've got to be kind of patient, and you've got to have a lot of reasons to want to get in. Don't just get in, but it is a spike and then continual underperformance token. And most of its time is spent being the underperformance. And then suddenly, violently, it's the spike. And you can spend your whole life waiting for that one spike and miss it. So this is not for everyone. But there is an XRP army out there. So if this turns, and it's going down right now, but if this turns and gets back up to the 65 without running that level there, so let's put an alert in there, 63 as we approach it, 60, my apologies, and we said 59 all the nines. If that holds and breaks in a reasonable time, so it would need to do it, I wouldn't want to see this get complex, even if it didn't run the 69. Say it did this, went around, kind of came up, then fell back down again, and you ended up with such a long ass story like this, that the right shoulder has now, in terms of proportionality, totally exceeded anything else to do with the head and the pattern. The pattern starts to lose its structure. So even without running the 60, if something doesn't happen within a reasonable time frame, this pattern is null and void. We started with the hardest part of all of this, guys. That's why you got to stay with me. But if it turns, if it breaks, providing Bitcoin and the dollar are not doing anything too dramatic. I'm not seeing the dollar being overly dramatic, but mild bias bull, but with quite a bit of churn and pullback. Bitcoin, I am long-term bullish, but I think it needs to have a bit of a sideways and sell-off leg to come. Now it's got its RH2 in, and I wasn't interested in trading it on the upside because it's not overly dominant long, and we didn't get a specific structure. So I stood by, I said that's what it's going to probably do, and I watched it do it, and I didn't trade a cent of it. And that's comfort. That's comfort and discipline, because anything where you think something might go up, even when you don't know the reasons and you don't have proper targets and decent stops, and you feel, well, let me just go in anyway, that's a lack of discipline. You've got a trade system. That's what HVF method is about. So we watched it go up and it went up. So if this triggers the target that it generates, I'd like you to check this with me because I'm prone to mistakes. The target that it generates will be in and around. Did I do the bad? Yes, I did a slight bad. The target that it generates will be there. 73233. So that is on the 1 hour. Now, why do you care about that? If it does 73 cents, and we already need to adjust this complexity draw here, give it some more space, because it's actually, as we are talking about it, it's dying. It's making it dying. But remember, it's not about the 5-minute chart or the 1-minute chart. So assuming that it comes back up, that will be 73 target. Why is that interesting? So now I take you from the hourly to the 4 hourly, say okay, and now I go to the daily, and we will just take that off and show you what we got here. So assuming it does, and by the way, this little inverted can fail. It can come down, run the 60 and go a bit lower, and then churn and go really low vol and make another one. We'll just be back in again on the other one, and then eventually start coming up and then break one and have an impulsive move. So eventually some inverted head and shoulder trades. All of that is fine. I'm going to keep looking at any semi-serious fractal which points to the upside. I would say, I'm not sure this one is going to necessarily be the one, but you guys keep asking for updates on XRP. It's still a bit choppy there. You almost want it to go sleepy doo-dums. That kind of price behavior is the beginning of upward drift. Still a little bit choppy. There seems to be steady selling. See the wicks there, there, and there. Let's make this a bit bigger. I'm pie in the sky here. You guys are battling to see everything. So now I want to go back up to the log scale because we're on a bigger time frame. So that does look like a shooting star, and that does look like a rejection. I think you will pull back. So I think that this little fractal could well fail. But it'll only set up another one maybe a bit lower down. It'll only set up another one maybe a bit lower down. But it could also just be shallow and start basing and going up. That target that it generated was 73 cents, you might recall. That target was 73 cents, and that will bring you to that level. Do you want to see that target again? Let's go back to the hourly. Put everything back on and just double check that we are accurate. What was it? 73 cents. You see that? Okay, back to our daily. 73 cents. So now we have a strong candidate for a daily. We do. We have a strong candidate for a daily. So if we get to 73 cents, remember, we have a triggering event for a daily structure. So we've gone up from an hour to a daily time frame. Stay with me, guys. I need your concentration. Look into my eyes. Look into my eyes. The serpent. We are spinning eyes. No, we're not serpents. But I need your concentration. Focus on this. This is potentially your daily. And then a bit of rejection, churn, whatever's going to happen here, we're waiting to see. But if it does do a breakup and runs to 73, that's going to bring you up here. And typically with a bit of overperformance, it's quite potentially likely, given how close you are to your triggering event, that you will break the green line in a break, a return move, and then subsequently you will go to that first interim, then you will go to a second interim over there, and then you're likely to go to a target on the daily setup. Remind us of the daily setup, Francis. Here it is right here on XRP. The daily setup is like that. One small pattern that triggers this pattern will take you where? Where's the target of the bigger one? Up there at 144, 1444. That's all it is. So let's just clean our face again. 1444. Pretty interesting and handy. Let me get that one off. It's confusing people. No, don't kill the alert. Take the line off. We've somehow managed to get two structures at once. Let me tidy up my stuff here. There we go. That's better. So second interim, first interim, and target 144.5. And that could all happen off that one little inverted head and shoulders that runs you through to the 73. Remember, your just-in-time entry is 74 and 4s. This is taking you 73s and summing. You'll either just stop and not trigger, or you're going to break that line. That now means the daily is in play. The daily is in play, and that means a 145 target. A 145 target. That is quite a big move. 145. That is excellent. That's exciting. How does the 145 look? Well, it's time to go up to the bigger time frame. And this draw won't be new to you. But if we get to 145, we will have triggered this, which is an even bigger structure and setup. So let's go. So we're doing, why do we do these patterns within patterns? And you've got to change time frames. Isn't it all a big waste of time? Isn't it also confusing as well? You guys have to sit and watch this stuff. Why do we bother? Well, let's just delete that little fella now. So going to 145 will bring you up to here, which happens to very much confluence with our first interim of a much bigger weekly structure, a much bigger weekly structure in XRP. And the updated target, I kind of mentioned this on Twitter, but it hasn't got through to the masses. We've spoken of 16 and 17 before, but in actual fact, that given this recent high over here, when we did the videos with Vershawn and the other guys, this high hadn't been put in. So we had missing information. We now have a qualifying third high and third low. That will generate for us a 20.05. So not only is XRP doing badly and going down right now, we're upping the target while it's happening. How about that? How about that? Talk about a cheeky old monkey. You bet your life. And again, on the token, that has been an absolute jellyfish, a spineless jellyfish with no testicular vandolas at all in an environment where other things are moving. But catch up can be catch up, and it can be extreme. Generally, I say to you, your first movers always end up being your best movers. I'd rather be late to a first mover than go back to some of these old coins like BCH and Litecoin on the arse end of an alt run and say, I've missed all the others, let me try get those. Those tend to let you down because they're late, they don't make targets so much, and suddenly things change suddenly and you miss the run and you only get a minor surge and they fail. Listen, generally that's right, but this has a weekly structure of great significance. And don't forget to remember the first cup gold nugget that we projected, and we said to you, you're going to get well north. The target for that was well through the mid 50s with a target. You got your 64 and 69 targets with overperformance, and that is a less good structure than this. This is a qualifying structure of some quality. So when it goes, it will go big. Right now, tiny bit tired. We can see a shooting star. So when you're looking at the bigger time frames, it's also easier to see the candles. I've got so many alerts. It's a tripwire fest in there. It's difficult for you guys to see anything. But you can see a shooting star, a little bit of a hammer to shake it off, a little bit going a bit stale and sleepy. That's not too bearish, stale and sleepy. Can be sideways with a mild dip and then a bit of a bomb. But that is 20.06 for the upside. That is our structure. That is our target. This is where we rest. We'll put a little alert in there at the second interim and the first. And the interesting thing about that first interim is it was at the one just after the 145s as well, when we most expect the target of this fella to tap out. So that little one's target will tap out there. And that'll be the first interim for a pullback on the larger one. You see it now. Then we cover the open field territory quickly. Then we rest again, we rest again, we rest again, and then we go. Now it could be a whole bunch faster if it was something super positive, but you know, we'll have to see. So that is XRP, that is the structure. And taking you back down because you got confused about this going up to big time frames, to remind you, that's the increased target. That is now a $20 run. Remember, over performance, so it can run 21, 22, even 24 in running $20. Remember, when you spike big. Look at these big candles. You smash through targets. There's a bit of overperformance element to that. We'll close at least 75% there if we are fortunate enough to have it break and move in that direction. And we'll play with the 25% on the extra overperformance. There may be scope for additional profits and jam out of that. Going back down, to remind you one more time how and why we got here, is this particular pattern. These things have slowly been coming around and forming. And that is quite an acceptable structure now. It's quite an acceptable. This is a strong 3. It's only marginally lower than the 2. And that was a super spike 1 that started with this structure. You may remember the last time we had a great run. That was that. And then dipped down here and based out. So this is kind of, you know, base plating lows over here. That is your first impulse, your second. And now we are in third territory. Might be a little soon. I'm noticing a lot of selling wicks here. You see there. But we will see. There is a potential reversal structure that could play. Just currently a little bit off at the moment. So that's your daily. That's the one that'll take you to 145. That fixed. That line's obviously not part of that. There you go. That's the one that'll take you to 145. Bring it in, bring it in. There's the 145. So we're going back down again. And now we go to the hourly. As we see that rejection, we put the lights back on. And you're getting a second dip. So you're double shouldering. I'm a good shoulder dancer. Yeah, that's about the most dishonest thing I've ever said on this channel. Going up, down, complex. It was a complex journey. So what you tend to get in one shoulder, you tend to get a repeat. So it was complex journey like that. Quite a toothy grid. So it's natural to expect some complexity here. It's already getting a bit up there. It's being a little bit of a wick. This could be the best entry you get. Your entry could be over here. You can take your stop down to there. Where do you put your target? You guessed it. $20. That's right. We've doubled down. We've gone bigger. Come back into focus. Damn autofocus. They just go, we hate it. The sun is shining off his bald pate. Time to focus somewhere else. The camera's going, no, it's just a crank. It's an absolute crank. Kit is crank. Anyway, so back up. How does the upside look to all of this? If you entered here, not a recommendation. Do your own research, non-advisory, all the T's and C's. All the T's and C's. We'd go back up to, let's give this a bit of legs. We go back up to the weekly. $20. Let's do it like that. What's the risk reward? 588.87. Now that should tell you that the probabilities are reasonably low, but it's an exceptional trade. Why? Because we're using multiple patterns and they're all in the same direction. You're not betting on them all going in different directions. You just need this first smallest one to break impulsively in the initial direction, and then it will bring on the second stage power of bigger patterns that have more predictability and more power, that will bring on even bigger macro patterns that have higher probability and even greater power. This is called multiplying your way to wealth. And your dollar, for every dollar, would turn into $588. That's right, I've just shown you, and it's not even a particularly tight stop for an hourly time frame. And if you put in $100,000, well then, you would be a seriously wealthy young man. I know you're a young man because most of our people watching our channels relative to me are young men. You see, I am Methuselah. I've come back from the dead without my hair. No, we're having a bit of fun here, but this is an incredible potential risk reward. I think you get that, and that's what we're sharing with you. And I know we have 7% of our ladies, and we're very delighted to have the ladies. So to all the ladies that watch the Crypto Sniper, go and tell all the other chicks you are the bee's knees and freaking awesome, because they don't know what they're missing. You're smarter than the rest, and we're delighted to have you. There you go. Something for everyone in that. Thank you for watching. Hit the link and subscribe. Don't forget, we like to have fun. We build wealth. We don't fear going into psyops that's perpetrated by occultic cow slaughterers on special days that want to build temples, because that's clearly the sign of goodness. Clearing people from their lands. No, we don't focus on that at all. We resist the psyop of all control structures. We seek freedom as individuals, liberty, and we aim to build wealth. Wealth, that's right, in reset times, where actually incredible opportunities will exist, but it will be a deeply polarizing event where there will be some that are wondering what happened and get absolutely spanked, and there will be people like us that have been preparing for this, alert for it, are mentally trained to toughness, to accept that the world is not some pure amazing place that's filled only with people that want good things for you, and we will build that wealth and preserve it in an environment where the Bolshevik communist is wishing to bring the technological surveillance grid and drop it over your head. Our wealth will buy us some small freedoms for joy and delight. Until next time, I'll catch you later. Thanks for watching.